The first encounter, humanity's first misstep. Ambassador Sarah Chen stood tall before the Galactic Alliance's council, her eyes unwavering despite the condescending glances and smirks that were directed her way. The Grand Council chamber, with its gleaming crystalline walls that stretched toward the heavens and floating platforms that defied gravity, seemed designed to intimidate any who dared enter. To the alien representatives who filled the seats around the chamber, it was a symbol of power and superiority. But to Chen, it was merely another room where decisions were made. She had been in far more hostile environments growing up, deep in the underwater cities of New Shanghai. The glistening spires of the Alliance Council might dazzle a lesser soul, but not her. The calmness with which she stood was a reflection of her upbringing, a product of Earth's most extreme conditions. High Counselor Vex Thor, a towering figure with translucent tentacles rippling with barely controlled disdain, began his statement with the same rehearsed condescension that had been echoed by countless others before him. Humanity's application for full Alliance membership, he said, his voice cold and authoritative, must be denied. Your species simply has not demonstrated the sophistication necessary to join our ranks. Sarah's newer implants buzzed quietly in her ear, recording everything, transmitting real-time data back to Earth. She didn't need to look at them to know that the people watching from back home, scientists, diplomats, world leaders, would be paying close attention. Every word, every gesture could tip the balance. Humanity's future in the stars was hanging by a thread. The intergalactic community requires members who can uphold the delicate balance of peace. Vex Thor continued, his slimy tentacles curling in the air as if to underline his authority. You humans are too impulsive, too unpredictable. Your history is marred by constant conflict and instability. You have yet to prove that you are worthy of joining the Alliance. Sarah's lips pressed into a thin line, but she maintained her composure. This was not the first time she had heard such words. The entire journey from Earth to the galactic capital had been fraught with the echoes of similar sentiments. The last few months had been spent in preparation for this moment, poring over the extensive documents outlining human achievements, technological advancements, and diplomatic efforts. She had briefed the human delegation on the importance of restraint, of presenting themselves as a peaceful, cooperative species, one that could hold its own, but only when necessary. Yet here she stood, facing a council of species that had judged humanity before they had even taken the time to understand the true nature of human resilience. They saw the chaos of Earth's past, the wars, the betrayals, the failures, and assumed that was all humanity was. They were wrong. I think we can all agree, Sarah began, her voice steady, that humanity's past is a tapestry of both triumphs and failures. But to judge a species solely by its past is to ignore its capacity for change. Earth may have once been a death world, full of conflict, scarcity, and strife. But we have overcome that. We have learned. We have evolved. A ripple of disbelief swept through the room. There was a moment of stunned silence before the various alien delegates exchanged glances, some mocking, others skeptical. It was rare for humans to speak so boldly in the presence of the Galactic Council, and Sarah knew that this would be her defining moment. She couldn't afford to back down, to cower before these alien elites. The very future of humanity depended on this. The delegation from the Draxian Empire, a species known for their towering reptilian forms and razor-sharp intellect, exchanged whispers. Their representative, a female named Xayr, leaned forward and spoke with a hiss. And what of your military record, Ambassador Chen? You speak of peace and evolution, but humanity's history is riddled with violence. Your war with the Quarry was a prime example of your species' recklessness. Sarah's eyes narrowed slightly. The Quarry War had been a brutal conflict, one that humanity had been forced into, but the Alliance members always seemed to focus on the violence rather than the circumstances. That was a defensive war, she replied, her voice unwavering. We did not seek conflict, but we fought for survival, as any species would. What matters now is that we've turned that aggression into a force for good, We've worked with other species, assisted in peacekeeping efforts, and learned from our mistakes." The tension in the room thickened. She could feel the weight of their skepticism pressing down on her, but she stood firm. The Draxian representative scowled but did not speak further, her sharp gaze fixated on Sarah. Sarah could feel the collective judgment of the council, but she would not allow their doubts to shake her resolve. "You speak of humanity's evolution," said Vex Thor, his voice dripping with disdain, "but you cannot erase the past with mere words. You must show us that you are worthy of joining the Galactic Alliance, that you can contribute to our collective peace. Your species must prove it." Sarah nodded slowly, knowing the next words she spoke could either seal humanity's fate or open the door to a new chapter in galactic history. "I understand," she said, "but I would like to remind the Council that no species can truly be judged until it is tested. The Galactic Alliance has never faced a species like humanity, one forged in the fires of conflict, shaped by survival, and driven by an unyielding will to innovate and adapt." A low murmur spread across the chamber. Some delegates appeared intrigued, while others looked skeptical, unwilling to even entertain the idea of humanity's potential. But there was one thing Sarah knew for certain: humans would rise to the occasion. When the time came, they would show the galaxy that they were more than just survivors. They were innovators, dreamers, and warriors. The moment of truth was fast approaching. The Council would either accept or reject humanity, but Sarah was determined that the outcome would not be determined by the past alone. She could only hope that when the time came, the galaxy would finally see humanity for what it truly was. The first test of humanity's place in the stars had just begun. The turning point. Humanity's moment of reckoning. The tension in the council chamber lingered like a storm cloud, heavy and unyielding. The debate was far from over, and Sarah could feel the weight of the assembled delegates' expectations pressing down on her. Every word she had spoken, every argument she had made, had been dissected and judged with laser precision. Now, more than ever, she needed to prove that humanity's potential wasn't just a series of lofty ideals, but something real, something that could shape the future of the galaxy. Vex Thor's cold, calculating gaze lingered on her. He was the first to speak after Sarah's impassioned defense of humanity. "Ambassador Chen," he began, his voice deliberately slow and heavy, "you've spoken of evolution and survival, but what about your capacity for cooperation? For unity? Can humanity, so fragmented by its history, truly align with the greater good of the Galactic Alliance?" Sarah's heart raced, but her face remained a mask of composure. She had anticipated this question. The idea of unity had always been humanity's Achilles heel in the eyes of the galactic elites. They didn't understand how a species so fractured, divided by nations, ideologies, and internal conflicts, could ever truly cooperate on a universal scale. To them, unity was the cornerstone of strength. But Sarah knew something they didn't. Humanity's greatest strength was precisely its diversity and its ability to find common ground, even in the most trying of circumstances. "We may not have the perfect model of unity you envision," Sarah said, her voice clear and unwavering, "but our strength lies in our diversity. We are a species capable of collaboration across borders, of overcoming differences to work toward a common goal. When faced with the impossible, humans have repeatedly come together, not through coercion or forced alliances, but through shared purpose." Her words resonated in the chamber, drawing a few approving nods from certain delegates, but there were still many who remained skeptical. The Draxian representative crossed her arms, her reptilian eyes narrowing in doubt. "And how do you intend to prove that, Ambassador? Your species is known for its history of division. Even now, you still face internal strife. How can we trust that you won't collapse under the weight of your own failures?" Sarah's gaze met Xire's, and she felt the challenge in the air. It was a direct confrontation, and the stakes couldn't have been higher. But Sarah had spent her entire life preparing for moments like this. She knew humanity's flaws, perhaps better than anyone, but she also knew their potential to overcome them. She knew how far they had come, and how much further they could go. "We will prove it," Sarah replied, her tone resolute. "Through action, not words. Humanity has a long history of mistakes, yes, but it also has a history of redemption. Every time we've fallen, we've risen again, stronger, wiser, more united. That is the essence of being human." There was a long pause in the chamber as the council members mulled over her words. Even Vex Thor seemed momentarily taken aback. It wasn't the answer they had expected, and it wasn't the answer they wanted. But Sarah had said what needed to be said, and it was out there now. The challenge had been laid down. Before anyone could respond, the hum of the chamber's doors opening cut through the tension. The bright lights dimmed slightly, and a soft voice echoed through the room. A new presence had arrived. It was a tall figure, cloaked in a flowing, silver-gray robe, their features hidden behind a shimmering veil. They carried an air of mystery, as if they were someone beyond the ordinary, someone who didn't belong to any one species, but rather transcended all boundaries. "Council," the figure spoke, their voice calm and resonant. "I bring news that cannot wait. You may want to reconsider your judgment on the human race." The council members turned their attention toward the newcomer, their curiosity piqued. Sarah's eyes narrowed, recognizing the presence of the stranger. She had never seen this individual before, but there was something undeniably powerful about them. Something otherworldly. Vex Thor, always the first to react, raised an eyebrow. "And who are you to make such claims? We are in the middle of a very important deliberation." The figure lowered their veil, revealing a face that seemed to blend characteristics from multiple species. Sharp angular features like those of the Draxians, the smoothness of the Tylari's bioluminescent skin, and the eyes of a human, deep and piercing. It was a face that could belong to no single race, and yet it seemed to contain the essence of them all. "I am known as Aldrak," the figure said simply, "and I come from the farthest reaches of space, beyond the boundaries of your mapped galaxy. I have seen what lies ahead for humanity." A murmur rippled through the room. Aldrak's presence was undeniably commanding, and their words seemed to carry an unspoken weight. Sarah felt the hairs on the back of her neck stand up. She had heard of the mysterious travelers, those who ventured beyond the known galaxies, beyond the reach of even the most advanced civilizations. But she had never expected one to show up here now, at such a critical moment. "You have seen the future of humanity." Vex Thor's tone was now more guarded, less certain. Aldrak nodded, their gaze fixed on Sarah. "Yes, I have witnessed the potential that lies within your species, and I have seen the future of this galaxy, a future shaped by the actions of humanity." A chill ran through Sarah's spine. Could this being truly know the future? Was this some kind of manipulation, or was this their chance to show the council just how wrong they were about humanity? Aldrak raised a hand, their long fingers glowing faintly with an ethereal light. "Humanity is destined to be the catalyst for change in this galaxy. You will face trials, yes, battles both external and internal. But in the end, it will be humanity's ingenuity, your resilience, that saves us all." The words seemed to hang in the air, suspended by the force of Aldrak's presence. The council chamber fell silent as every delegate processed what had just been said. Even the usually confident Vex Thor seemed uncertain, his tentacles twitching as he weighed the implications of Aldrak's statement. Sarah felt a surge of hope, but she kept her face neutral. This was the moment she had been waiting for. She could feel the eyes of the council on her, waiting for her to respond. Would they believe the stranger's words? Or would they dismiss them as the ramblings of some alien trying to manipulate the outcome? "We have been told that humanity is a species of war, of conflict," Sarah said, her voice steady. "But what if that is not the whole truth? What if, instead, we are a species capable of great innovation and cooperation, one that can rise above its flaws and unite for the greater good?" Aldrak nodded slowly, their eyes reflecting an ancient knowledge. "You will rise. And when you do, it will be humanity that leads the way. You are not just survivors. You are creators. You will shape the future of this galaxy." The words hit like a lightning bolt, sparking something deep within Sarah. She knew this was her moment. It was no longer just about diplomacy. It was about showing the galaxy that humanity was more than the sum of its past mistakes. They were capable of greatness, capable of something truly extraordinary. And she would be the one to lead them into that future. As Aldrak stepped back, their figure shimmering once more, the council chamber remained eerily quiet. The weight of their words hung heavy in the air. Sarah took a deep breath and turned toward the council. "Now you see," she said, her voice filled with newfound conviction, "that humanity's true strength lies not in what we've done, but in what we are capable of becoming." The first test had been passed. The journey was just beginning. The cost of belief, a test of trust and sacrifice. The council chamber was abuzz with hushed conversations and furtive glances. Aldrak's words hung over the assembly like a cloud, mysterious and tantalizing. Sarah stood resolute, her eyes fixed on the array of council members who were now re-evaluating their stance on humanity's place in the galaxy. Vexthor, the Draxian representative, was the first to break the silence, his voice low and suspicious. "You expect us to trust a single individual's vision of the future?" Vex's tone dripped with skepticism. "One who claims to have seen events unfold beyond our reach. One who, no offense, Ambassador Chen, seems to favor humanity's cause, despite your clear lack of unity and order." Sarah could feel the sting of his words, but she stood firm. Vexthor's cynicism was nothing new. It was the same skepticism humanity had faced for centuries. From the outside, humans often appeared chaotic, unpredictable, and disorganized. What the galaxy didn't understand was that this very unpredictability was what gave humanity its resilience, its creativity, its ability to adapt and overcome. She had learned that over the years, through the trials, through the mistakes, and through the small victories that stitched together the complex tapestry of human history. Before she could respond, another voice rang out from the far corner of the room. Tagtwire, the reptilian representative of the Tylari, uncrossed her arms and leaned forward, her scaled skin glinting under the lights. "If Aldrak's prophecy is to be believed, we should be wary," Sire said, her voice laced with suspicion. "Humanity has been a species of war. We cannot overlook that. Even now, while you advocate for peace and cooperation, your people wage conflicts, not just on their own world, but throughout the galaxy. Your reach extends further than you may think." Sarah inhaled sharply. The accusations were all too familiar. The wars on Earth, the fractured alliances, the betrayals. Humanity's history was littered with the scars of conflict. But what Ixure and the others didn't see was the profound internal struggle humanity had undergone. There was so much more to their story than mere violence and discord. There were acts of kindness, sacrifices made in the face of adversity, and alliances forged from necessity that had transformed into genuine cooperation. "I don't deny humanity's history of mistakes," Sarah said, her voice unwavering. "But that history is what fuels our desire to change, to do better, and to learn from the past. We are not defined by our mistakes, but by how we rise from them." For a moment, there was quiet. The tension in the room was palpable, as if the fate of the galaxy was hanging by a thread. Sarah could feel the weight of their scrutiny. The council had been presented with a stark choice: to reject the possibility of humanity's redemption, or to embrace it, uncertain as it might be. The road ahead would not be easy, but it was one humanity was willing to take, and Sarah was determined to lead them there. But the tension was about to escalate further. Just as the council seemed to be caught in a moment of reflection, the doors to the chamber swung open again, and another figure stepped forward, this time one whom Sarah recognized immediately. "General Garrick," she said, her voice a mixture of surprise and dread. General Elias Garrick, humanity's greatest military strategist, had appeared, and his presence in the council chamber sent a ripple of concern through the room. His reputation preceded him, a decorated hero who had led humanity's forces in countless battles across the galaxy. While some saw him as a symbol of strength, others viewed him as a relic of humanity's more violent past. Sarah's heart sank. She hadn't expected him to be here, and certainly not at this moment. Garrick's tall frame filled the doorway as he strode forward, his uniform immaculate, and his demeanor cold, almost clinical. His piercing blue eyes locked with Sarah's, and for a moment, the two of them shared a brief, silent exchange. There was something in his gaze, a mixture of regret and determination, that unsettled her. "Ambassador Chen," Garrick's voice echoed through the chamber. "I need to speak." Sarah's breath caught in her throat. "General, what are you doing here?" He looked around the room, taking in the faces of the council members before he spoke again. "I've come to show you something. Something that will prove to you exactly what humanity is capable of. Something that cannot be denied." Sarah's pulse quickened. She didn't know what he was referring to, but she had a sinking feeling in her gut. If Garrick had come to the council with a message, it wasn't one she was ready for. Garrick turned to the council. "I've seen the future, too. And it's not what Aldrak says. It's something far darker. If humanity is to be trusted, it must first prove its worth, not with words, but with actions. There are forces at play within your galaxy that would exploit your species' inherent chaos. And if you don't act soon, if you don't give humanity a true test, the galaxy will pay the price." A murmur swept through the room. Sarah's heart pounded in her chest. What was Garrick talking about? His words were cryptic, but there was something about them that felt like a threat, a warning about something even worse lurking in the shadows. "General, please," Sarah said, her voice pleading but controlled. "This isn't the time for fear-mongering. We've already faced so much." "No," Garrick interrupted sharply. "This isn't fear-mongering, Ambassador. This is reality. We've seen what happens when humanity is allowed to act without accountability. I've seen entire civilizations decimated by your species' unrestrained impulses. We need to confront that head-on." The council was silent now, caught between the two conflicting visions of humanity's future. On one hand, there was Sarah's message of hope and redemption, her belief in humanity's ability to change. On the other, there was Garrick's grim warning, his experience as a soldier and strategist pushing him to believe that humanity's past sins would inevitably catch up with them. Garrick turned toward the council's central viewing platform and, with a command, activated a hologram. The room darkened, and a shimmering display projected across the room. It was a battle, a conflict between human forces and an alien species, one that had been waged in a distant corner of the galaxy. Sarah's stomach twisted as she watched the holographic images unfold. Ships torn apart in a vicious engagement, planets reduced to nothing but debris, entire populations wiped out in the chaos of warfare. "This," Garrick said, his voice low, "is what happens when humanity is allowed to fight unchecked. This war was supposed to be over. It was supposed to be a victory. But instead, it has left nothing but ruin." The room was silent, the weight of the hologram's images pressing down on everyone. Even Sarah felt the truth of Garrick's words, the unmistakable reality of what humanity was capable of in its darker moments. It was a stark contrast to the vision Aldrak had painted, a future of unity, of hope. Garrick's eyes met Sarah's. "Do you still believe in your people's potential, Ambassador? After seeing what they've done, after seeing the destruction they've caused?" Sarah's heart wavered, the weight of the choice before her nearly too much to bear. She looked at the council members, their expressions a mixture of doubt and fear, and then back at Garrick, his face hard and uncompromising. She knew she couldn't deny the truth of what he had shown them. But she also knew that humanity's future was not determined by its past mistakes, but by the choices they would make moving forward. Taking a deep breath, she stood tall and turned toward the council. "Yes," she said, her voice filled with unshakable resolve. "I believe in humanity. I believe that we can change, but that change must come through sacrifice. We must be willing to confront our darkest impulses, to face the consequences of our actions, and to prove that we are worthy of a place in this galaxy. The room was silent. A tension like no other filled the chamber. The council was at a crossroads. They had been shown the darkest aspects of humanity's history, but now they were faced with the question that would define everything. Could they trust humanity to overcome its past, or would it fall into the same patterns of destruction? The decision was no longer just about diplomacy. It was about something much greater: humanity's destiny in the universe. The next few moments would determine everything. The crossroads of destiny, a gamble for the future. The chamber was quiet, its air thick with tension, as the council members exchanged furtive glances. The decision they were about to make was one that would shape the future of not just humanity, but the entire galaxy. Sarah Chen stood at the forefront, her thoughts racing. General Garrick's harsh display of humanity's destructive potential had shaken the room, leaving the council members uneasy, uncertain of the path they were about to take. In the corner of the room, Aldrak sat quietly, his eyes reflecting a deep sadness, yet unwavering belief. He had trusted Sarah with the most important task in the galaxy, to guide humanity toward unity, to prove that despite the chaos, humans were capable of something greater. Now, as the weight of the council's scrutiny bore down on her, Sarah had to find a way to reconcile the two opposing forces at play: the vision of hope that Aldrak had shared, and the grim reality that Garrick had laid bare. Garrick's voice broke the silence, sharp and commanding. "This is not a matter of belief, Ambassador," he said, his eyes fixed on Sarah. "It's about action. You talk of unity, of redemption, but look at the evidence." He waved toward the holographic display still hovering in the center of the room, the image of a once thriving planet now reduced to ashes. Humanity's legacy of war, of reckless decisions, of greed and ambition, cannot be erased by a few speeches. You may have noble ideals, but they are just that, ideals. You must prove you can be trusted. Sarah's heart clenched at the weight of his words, but she refused to be swayed. She knew that humanity's history was not without its flaws, but she also knew it was filled with moments of extraordinary courage, compassion, and perseverance. Those were the stories she had lived for, the ones she had come to believe in. She could not let Garrick's words define the future of her people, not without a fight. With a steadying breath, Sarah turned her gaze toward the council. "General Garrick speaks of the past, of the destruction that humanity has caused," she said, her voice unwavering. "But he ignores the fact that humanity has always had the capacity for change, for growth, for redemption. You've seen what we've accomplished in the last few centuries alone. We've united against common enemies. We've built bridges where once there were walls. We've faced our darkest impulses and come out stronger because of it. The question is not whether we've made mistakes, it's whether we are willing to confront them and ensure we never repeat them." Her words hung in the air, their weight pressing on the council like a heavy stone. Sarah knew that the path ahead would not be easy. It was not a path that could be paved with optimism alone, nor could it be built on fear of the past. But she had to make the council believe that humanity's potential outweighed its failings, that they had the power to change, and with the right guidance, they could rise to the occasion. Vexthor, the Draxian representative, leaned forward, his eyes sharp with skepticism. "And what of your leaders, Ambassador? What of your governments? Your militaries? Are they truly ready to abandon their history of violence and take on the responsibility of the entire galaxy?" Sarah paused, feeling the weight of his question. She knew that the political landscape of humanity was fractured, divided by national interests, economic greed, and ideological differences. But there was something more powerful than division. There was the collective will of the people, the potential for transformation, if only they could see the greater picture. "We have our challenges," she admitted, her voice steady. "But we also have something that no other species in this galaxy possesses: the ability to adapt, to learn from our mistakes. We have seen the devastation of war, the heartbreak of division, and yet we continue to rebuild. It's not perfect, but it's real. And it's happening every day. She turned to the council, her gaze sweeping over the assembled leaders. I can't promise you that humanity will be free of mistakes, but I can promise you that we will strive for something better. We will stand by our commitment to peace, to cooperation, and to building a future where our history of violence is not a blueprint for the future, but a lesson to guide us. There was a long pause, and Sarah felt the weight of the council's collective judgment on her. It was as if time itself had slowed. Every eye in the room locked on her, weighing her words, measuring her sincerity. The fate of the galaxy rested on their decision. Sarah felt a knot form in her stomach, but she refused to let it show. This was her moment, humanity's moment. At that moment, Aldrak rose from his seat. His presence was calm, but powerful, and he addressed the council with the gravity of a man who had seen more than any living being should. I stand with Ambassador Chen, he said, his voice carrying an undeniable authority. I, too, have witnessed humanity's potential. I have seen them rise from the ashes of their past, to overcome the obstacles in their path, to reach beyond what even they thought was possible. I am not blind to their flaws, but I believe in their capacity for greatness. The room was silent as Aldrak's words settled over the council. There was no dismissing his authority, no ignoring the weight of his testimony. His words carried the experience of millennia, and for many of the council members, they knew that if Aldrak believed in humanity, then there had to be something worth believing in. Vex Thor crossed his arms, his expression one of calculation. You expect us to entrust the galaxy's future to a species so full of contradictions? He asked. One that has torn itself apart time and time again. Sarah felt the fire of frustration rise in her chest, but she kept it in check. I expect you to entrust humanity with the chance to prove itself, she replied. Just as I expect you to see beyond the chaos and see the potential for something more. Humanity is not defined by its contradictions. It is defined by its ability to change, to rise above. The council was divided, the tension palpable. And then, as if the universe itself was holding its breath, a soft voice spoke from the back of the room. It was not a representative, but rather one of the younger members of the council, an Anvari scholar named Elira, who had been silent throughout the proceedings. I believe in them, she said, her voice carrying a quiet confidence. I have studied their history. I have watched how they have struggled and failed, only to try again. I have seen their growth, their resilience, and while I don't know what the future holds, I do know that they deserve the chance to find out. Her words were simple, but they had a profound effect on the room. For the first time, it felt like the council was not simply looking at humanity as a threat or a potential ally. They were looking at them as individuals, as a species with potential. Elira's voice was the spark that ignited something in the room, a shift in the collective consciousness that could not be ignored. Sarah took a step forward, her heart swelling with a sense of hope she hadn't felt in years. Thank you, Elira, she said. I will not ask you to trust humanity blindly, but I will ask you to trust in our potential, in our capacity for change, and in the fact that we are willing to fight for a better future. The council murmured among themselves, the atmosphere charged with a new energy. For the first time since the debate began, there was a sense of possibility in the air, a sense that something truly transformative could happen. The room fell into silence once again as the leaders of the council began to deliberate. Sarah's fate and humanity's place in the galaxy would soon be decided, but for the first time in this long, arduous journey, she felt a flicker of hope. The brink of change, a battle for the future. The days following the council's deliberations were tense, filled with uncertainty. Sarah could feel the weight of the decision pressing down on her shoulders with every passing hour. Despite Elira's words and Aldrak's unwavering support, the council remained divided, their votes still uncertain. It was as if the galaxy's fate was balanced on the edge of a knife. One small shift in the balance of power, and everything would either fall into place or crumble into chaos. Sarah spent her nights pacing in her quarters, thinking, planning, and rethinking every word she had spoken before the council. The image of the destroyed planet still haunted her dreams, the hollow eyes of the millions who had perished, all victims of the same reckless tendencies that threatened to destroy the galaxy once more. Yet in those same dreams, she saw the glimmers of something more, a future where the stars no longer burned with the rage of war, where cooperation between species replaced the endless cycle of conflict. It was late in the evening when Sarah received a message that would change everything. The holographic transmission flickered to life in front of her, and she was greeted by a familiar face. General Garrick, his expression as stern as ever. Her heart sank as she braced herself for another tirade, another condemnation of humanity's reckless tendencies. But instead of anger, there was something else in his eyes, something more subtle, but no less significant. It was fear. Ambassador Chen. Garrick's voice was low, laced with an unfamiliar hesitation. I need to speak with you. In private. Sarah's brow furrowed. The last time she had seen Garrick in person, his animosity toward humanity had been palpable, his belief in their inability to change clear. Why, then, was he asking for a private meeting now? Was this a trick? A ploy to further undermine her position before the council? But despite the uncertainty, she couldn't ignore the gravity of his request. She had to hear him out. Perhaps this was the moment she had been waiting for, the final piece of the puzzle that could shift the balance and push the council toward a decision in humanity's favor. The meeting was set for the following evening. Sarah arrived in the designated chamber, a sterile, high-tech space with walls that pulsed faintly with the hum of artificial gravity. The room was empty except for the small circular table at its center and a solitary chair facing the door. She took a deep breath and sat down, steeling herself for whatever was to come. Moments later, the door slid open and Garrick entered. He was alone. No aides, no security. Just him, his dark, weathered face revealing little of his thoughts as he moved to the table and sat across from her. There was no immediate greeting, no formalities, just silence. Do you know what this is about? Sarah asked, breaking the quiet. Garrick looked at her with a weary gaze, his eyes not quite meeting hers. For the first time, she saw the toll his experiences had taken on him, not just physically, but emotionally. This was not the hardened, unyielding general she had faced before. This was a man who had seen the cost of war, who had witnessed firsthand the consequences of humanity's actions. I've seen the reports, he began, his voice rough, as though the words themselves caused him pain. The losses, the devastation. I've been part of that destruction, Ambassador. And he paused, shaking his head, as if he couldn't find the right words. I don't know anymore. Sarah felt the stirrings of empathy rise within her. She had always known that Garrick's hard exterior was a shield, a defense against the horrors he had witnessed. But this was something else entirely. She could sense that he was struggling with his own beliefs, his own guilt. General, she said softly, leaning forward, we all have our demons. I understand that. You don't have to carry this burden alone. He let out a bitter laugh, but there was no joy in it. I've spent my life fighting, leading my soldiers into battle. And now, I'm supposed to believe that humanity can rise above that. That we can be trusted with the future of the galaxy. Sarah's gaze softened. I understand your doubts, but I also understand that you're not the only one struggling with those questions. Humanity is facing its own crossroads. The very same battle that rages in your heart is the one that each of us is fighting. But I believe in our capacity for change, Garrick. I believe we can evolve. For a long moment, Garrick didn't speak. The silence between them was thick, heavy, laden with the weight of history. Sarah wasn't sure if he was even listening, but she refused to let up. She had to make him see. She had to make him believe in something better. I've seen what humanity is capable of when it chooses to fight for something greater than itself, she continued. You may not see it yet, but there are more of us working for that future than there are who cling to the old ways. We're not perfect. We never have been. But we have the potential for something better. Garrick's eyes met hers then, and for the first time, she saw a flicker of hope in them. "I want to believe you," he said, his voice low. "But I've lost so much. I've seen too much." Sarah nodded, understanding the depth of his pain. "We all have. But that's why we fight, General. Not just to survive, but to make sure that what we've lost isn't in vain." There was a long silence between them. And then, almost imperceptibly, Garrick nodded. "I don't know if I can convince the Council, but maybe you're right. Maybe it's time to give humanity a chance. A real chance." Sarah felt a surge of hope, though she tried to temper it. This was just one small step. A single vote, perhaps, but it could be the one that tipped the balance. "Thank you, General," she said quietly. "I know this isn't easy, but you're not alone in this. There are others who believe in this future, in the future we can build together." They sat there for a long moment, neither of them speaking, as the weight of the decision they both faced hung in the air. And when Garrick finally rose to leave, Sarah knew that the path ahead was still uncertain. The future of the galaxy rested on many shoulders, not just hers, not just his. But it was a start, and sometimes that was all they needed. As the door slid shut behind him, Sarah took a deep breath. She didn't know what the next day would bring. But she knew that humanity had a chance, and for the first time in a long while, she allowed herself to believe it might be enough.